Story 1. You want me to clear the dead grass or I'll be fined. I will clean exactly my property. Before we dive into tonight's story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button like you're ringing for room service at a 5-star hotel. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we've got cooking. Disclaimers. On mobile, non-English speaker, not in the US. This story started in 2017 and was repeated every year until this year, and I have promised my father-in-law to repeat the compliance if it happens again. My in-laws used to live just outside of town. They moved this past fall to my MIL's home island and we moved in their place. And when I say just outside, I mean about 2 meters outside of the city plan. To be exact, and important for later, the city plan reached up to the middle of the dirt road that separated their property from the neighboring one. So, back in the spring of 2017, my in-laws received a letter from the city council about cleaning their property from dead grass in preparation for summer due to fire hazards, or they would be fined. The letter and the deadline, end of May, were normal. What wasn't normal was the area named. It was their property, the property next to them, inside city limits, and the road in between. My FIL took the letter to the council and explained that the property next to him didn't belong to him and couldn't clean it. They appeared to accept it, but something was nagging him. Now, my FIL has worked in exactly 2 companies in life, both of them handling big government contracts, and his main job was to take care of red tape and government bureaucracy. So he found the exact law that said that the owner was responsible for their property and the city was responsible for any roads and any properties inside city limits that an owner couldn't be found. He had also found, through his connections, that the local council was under investigation for misappropriation of funds, including the funds for cleaning lots that were considered fire hazards. The tactic they used was to include lots that fell under their responsibility to nearby owners and either intimate, with the fear of a fine, to clean them or fine them and pocket the money. My FIL decided to become creative. First, he gathered all the plans related to his property and the one next to him. Next, he cleared his property. He was planning to do that anyway, but only that. He cleared the part of the road that fell outside city limits. And then he waited. The deadline passed, and about 10 days later, a hefty fine arrived. My FIL's challenge was social. The council tried to enforce the fine. My FIL challenged it again, presenting his evidence in an open forum of the council. The council insisted they were on the right and that if my FIL didn't pay, they would take legal action. My FIL agreed happily to the legal action. This led to the court appointing an outside inspector to check the property, the city plans, and the work my FIL had done. The council not only lost the case and had to pay legal fees, but was forced to an outside audit that led to a couple of councilmen facing criminal charges. Every year since then, my FIL used to clean his property and exactly up to the middle of the road next to him. That duty has been passed down to me now, which I fulfilled this year. Story 2. The manager threatened to write me up with a salary deduction if I didn't give a doctor's note for asking about my excess hours just because I am sick. I, 30F, have been working with this company for 3 years already. I work in retail and our managers are always micromanaging and will write us up each time, even just by breathing face with tears of joy, JK. But you can tell that's how they are up our noses all the time, especially when I was once written up for eating during my lunch break in our shop. That's for another story. Now on to the original story. My day offs are scheduled every Thursday and I was already feeling ill days before my day off. I had waited until my day off to rest and hope I could feel better, but when the end of my day off came, I still felt sick, so I informed my boss if I can use my excess hours and not come to work the next day since I am so sick. Just for context, our company never pays for our overtime, but expects us to work 12 hours of every day, and per day they will give us 2 hours excess since I never requested until that particular day. I had racked up 120 excess hours of overtime which can be used for layoffs, etc. I had only requested a 1-day extra off, which would amount to 10 hours to be deducted from my long extra hours accumulated. But my boss threatened to write me up if I didn't provide a doctor's note, and she informed me that, even if I will provide one, she won't deduct it to my hours, so I complied and went to the doctor and took a medical note and was given a 3-day recommended rest and sent it to my manager. Now she has no choice but to let me have an additional 3 more days of paid sick leave, and I won't be back to shop until Monday instead of just giving me a day to rest face with tears of joy. Now Saturday comes, and the shop has a lot of issues without me, and my reliever is having a hard time coping from work, so my manager calls me, and I didn't respond to any of her messages nor calls and just rested well. Monday came and I reported the company to labor claims, and the company was forced to pay me that 120 hours of overtime. Story 3. The principal told me to instruct courses I was not trained to teach or look for another job. So I did. I've been teaching for 6 years, at my last school for 2 years. I have a BA in history and MA in education. My principal and administrative staff pulled me out of one of my classes during an intense lecture I was giving and ambushed me in the hallway to ask/tell me I was going to teach IB classes next year. For those unaware, International Baccalaureate courses are intense classes for high school students that last from 1 to 2 years. These classes are intense, requiring what some teachers have said to be the time equivalent of a part-time job for them to plan and prepare, without additional pay and not part of my contract. For context, within the first 2 weeks of working at this school, I noticed the other side of the pendulum. the students with learning challenges, were being pushed aside to achieve the principal's goals of becoming an elite IB school. I began advocating for these students and offered to teach a co-taught class with a special education teacher to help these students achieve. It was a great success, seeing many of the former troubled students actively being engaged in class, and through the grapevine, I was told I was one of their favorite teachers since I got them. After the first semester, I heavily petitioned the staff to allow me to teach more of these specialized classes across my department. Here's the deal. There was no change in the curriculum, just in how I presented it to the shared class. Anyhow, the principal shot down my idea but allowed me to continue with my lone class for the next year. Back to the present. After the ambush, I went home and talked it over with my wife. She is my rock, and understood that I was troubled with the additional task of basically adding an additional 15 hours of work a week to my schedule. She said, "Go with your heart." The next week, I scheduled a meeting with the principal. I told him I was unprepared to teach the IB course this year, but if he would give me this year to prepare the additional materials and create a curriculum, I would be good to go for the next. I also asked if there were any other additional classes he would like for me to put together to teach next year. He said, "No, teach this course next year or look for another job." I asked about additional co-taught courses for the shared students who were overlooked. He said they were not important. I reminded him, yet again, that I was currently working toward my PhD in history to teach college-level courses in high school, so students could get dual credit and to jump on college and tech schools. He laughed at me and said, I quote, "None of the additional education you have taken since you started working here benefits the school at all. No one cares." This took the wind out of me. I love teaching. All of the additional work, time and effort spent away from my family has been to be a better teacher and a better example for my students. I told him I would need to think about this, and quietly left the room. I took the next day off, spending time with my family and speaking with my therapist. I am very lucky to have a wonderful support system. I went back to work after that, and there were a number of staff that spoke to me privately. They agreed what he said was shameful. They shared that I was not the only teacher he spoke to this way. From changing failing grades to passing to having teachers sponsor multiple extracurricular clubs without pay. I went to my union rep and added my statement to his ever-growing pile of staff statements about the principal. I assured him I was willing to go to the school board, etc. Just give me a call. Yep, I decided I was done. I wrote the principal an outstanding resignation letter, full of positivity, and thanked him for the wonderful opportunity to work at his school and to have learned from his outstanding example of leadership. Did I also mention I forwarded the email to the entire staff? There was no way he could publicly respond negatively to my resignation, and he was furious. The majority of the staff knew what was going on. There were many smiles and fist bumps. I was told by the office staff later 5 other teachers resigned, making this the biggest turnover in staff in a decade. The principal now has to go before the school board next month to explain what is happening at his school. I wonder if I am going to get a call?